Did you see they're going to give TikTok in part to Oracle, so the Ellison family might end up owning TikTok, CNN, and CBS? One Trump-aligned billionaire family could end up controlling CBS News, CNN, and TikTok. 3 categories of social legacy media outlets. Legacy owners becoming friendlier with Trump, Meta, WAPO, Los Angeles Times. Sold to Trump-allied owners, CBS, soon maybe TikTok and CNN. Facing massive lawsuits from Trump, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal. It's so ironic that one of the few outlets that is not like directly compromised by Donald Trump is unironically a far-right billionaire who actively has been the strongest advocate for Donald Trump. Rupert Murdoch is not a sufficient Trump loyalist by Trump's own standards, and now he stands alone alongside the New York Times. Both of these outlets are also hyper pro-Israel, for the record. Okay? That's another thing. That's another thing that you have to remember. These initiatives in terms of like both mainstream and independent outlets becoming super pro-Israel and pro-Trump in general is unfolding in front of our eyes. Larry Ellison and Larry Ellison's son are now going to be owning the, like, I would say, 33% of all American media, both independent and also legacy publishers? That's crazy. Is Larry Ellison a competent billionaire, or is he like Elon Musk? He is a competent billionaire. Yes, he is a CIA billionaire. He is the most competent billionaire. It's more terrifying that he gets to control TikTok. Are you kidding me? None of these guys are good. I would go so far as to say Larry Ellison might even be worse somehow. Well, probably not. Yeah, Mark Andreessen is on this too. He's the CEO of Oracle, which is considered the most evil company in tech, which is saying something. So even those who are seen as critical of Donald Trump, even outlets that are seen as critical of Donald Trump, one is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, who is perhaps most responsible in terms of mainstream media outlets in the United States of America for Donald Trump's rise to power. And the other is the New York Times. Again, lightly critical of Donald Trump at times, because they do engage, and at least when it comes to domestic affairs, like they engage in decent news coverage from time to time, but also still very much pro-Israel anyway. The TikTok deal is looking like a complete surrender by the admin, and it may even be illegal. If true, the U.S. will let Beijing determine what appears on the news feeds of 180 million U.S. TikTok users. Not quite America first. Even the advisors to the deal are renouncing it. It's the ultimate taco trade, said one U.S. advisor. That's a Financial Times. That's the pink tint of the Financial Times, which means I will take this reporting. I will take this reporting sincerely. This is probably the closest you are going to arrive at the truth. Out of all the major publications, once again, as leftists, as Marxists, as socialists, we say Financial Times is probably one of the best. Okay? It's the ultimate taco trade, said one U.S. advisor close to the deal, referring to the acronym Trump always chickens out. After all this, China keeps the algorithm. Beijing has said the U.S. spinoff of TikTok to be sold to American investors in a deal orchestrated by President Donald Trump will use parent company ByteDance's Chinese algorithm. Wang Jingtao, deputy head of China's powerful cybersecurity regulator, told reporters on Monday night that U.S. and Chinese officials had agreed to a framework that included licensing the algorithm and other intellectual property rights. I don't know if it's a bad deal overall. I don't see that. I think that person is fear mongering a little bit. Yes, I'm white Chinese. That's why I pronounced that Chinese person's name very well, because I'm white Chinese. Beijing has said the U.S. spinoff of TikTok to be sold to American investors in a deal orchestrated by President Donald Trump will use parent company ByteDance's Chinese algorithm. Wang Jingtao, a deputy head of China's powerful cybersecurity regulator, on Monday said the U.S. and Chinese officials had agreed to a framework that included licensing the algorithm and other intellectual property rights. He said ByteDance would entrust the operation of TikTok's U.S. user data and content security without elaborating. So this kind of looks like the same. This means that there will be a backdoor to like all of the user data, but they will still control the algorithm. But I will say that the U.S. TikTok regulators have already conceded on a bunch of stuff on the Israel issue, right? There's already a pro-Israel person that was tasked with combating anti-Semitism on the platform. So not sure how free the Chinese algorithms are going to look like For context, Oracle already operates all of China's U.S. data stored in Texas, so it would not be surprising if Oracle were the biggest buyer in the U.S. markets. Yeah. Trump, who was expected to finalize the deal when he speaks to China's President Xi Jinping on Friday, has again extended the deadline for the U.S. app to be divested from its Chinese owner. The U.S. president on Tuesday issued an executive order moving the date to mid-December, allowing time to negotiate and implement an agreement for greater U.S. control of the app. TikTok's powerful recommendation algorithm has been at the heart of a geopolitical tug-of-war over the short video app since the first Trump administration, when Beijing unveiled export controls on algorithms to thwart a forced sale of the app. The artificial intelligence algorithm underpins the app's prized ability to serve up addictive videos tailored to individual users, but has also raised fears among national security hawks that it could be manipulated to push Chinese propaganda or polarizing material to users. I wish that was the case. If that was the case, I'd be the biggest political voice in the United States of America. That is the reality. Very clearly, they are either oblivious to what they have here, or they're just playing ball with the admin. Like, one of the smartest things that the Chinese government did very clearly was tweak the algorithm in favor of Charlie Kirk videos. Donald Trump literally gave a stay of execution to TikTok for that reason. Okay? That's what happened. They tweaked the algo to boost right-wing sentiment on the application. And that's precisely what took place leading up to the election. And that's the reason why at least Trump thought Charlie Kirk was like so impactful in securing a larger percent of the Gen Z vote than ever before for Donald Trump. That is something that they deliberately did. Okay. That means they were willing to play ball in order to continue having TikTok be somewhat controlled, the algorithms on TikTok be somewhat controlled by the Chinese government. U.S. officials have insisted any deal must ensure TikTok's recommendation algorithm is fully severed from ByteDance, warning continued cooperation could allow Beijing to maintain influence over content seen by Americans. It remains unclear to what extent TikTok's Chinese parent would retain control over the algorithm in the U.S. part of a licensing deal. An Asia-based investor of ByteDance said the new U.S. TikTok entity would use at least part of the Chinese algorithm, but train it in the U.S. on American user data. Beijing's bottom line is a licensing deal, said the investor. Beijing wants to be seen as exporting Chinese technology to the U.S. and the world. It's the ultimate taco trade, said one U.S. advisor close to the deal, referring to the acronym Trump always chickens out. After all this, China keeps the algorithm. American and Chinese officials reached a framework agreement on Monday after 2 days of talks in Madrid to hammer out a deal that would keep the Chinese-owned app online in the U.S. The Trump administration has repeatedly intervened to keep TikTok available, despite U.S. law that required ByteDance to divest its American operations of the app or face a nationwide ban. China's two top trade negotiators, Vice Premier He Lifeng and Deputy Commerce Minister Li Chenggang, indicated Beijing would approve the export of the TikTok's algorithm. Separately, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the spun-off app would be controlled by American investors but preserve some Chinese characteristics. Another person familiar with the matter said Chinese characteristics. They're going to preserve socialism with Chinese characteristics. Another person familiar with the matter said TikTok had been developing a standalone U.S. app in anticipation of a deal, but was keen to ensure that content generated by American users will still be available to users in the rest of the world. App and vice versa. Ahead of the previous April deadline, the White House was close to an agreement that would have spun off U.S. TikTok into a company receiving new investment, potentially diluting the stakes of Chinese investors. Under the terms of that deal, investors, including Andreessen Horowitz and Silver Lake, would have owned about half of TikTok's U.S. business, while large existing investors, including General Atlantic, Susquehanna, and KKR, would have held about 30% of the new entity. As a part of that deal, Oracle, which already stores the personal data of American users on its U.S. cloud servers, would have taken a small holding in the new business and also been responsible for securing U.S. apps data. Trump on Tuesday said his government had been talking to a group of very big companies that want to buy TikTok. People briefed on the matter said the broad consortium of about a dozen Wall Street investors from April had narrowed significantly after some, such as Blackstone, pulled out. Some new large investors are in talks to join the group. Hold on one second. Analysts have said the algorithm must be fully operated by the U.S. entity to meet the requirements of the divest or ban law signed by the then President Joe Biden last year that would preclude a licensing deal with ByteDance. But the law allows U.S. presidents to determine if ByteDance is fully divested from TikTok, giving Trump the power to approve the deal. So, not exactly sure what level of control they will have over the American-facing side of the application. Having said that, Having said that, however, TikTok was already clearly interested in tweaking the algorithm to favor Donald Trump or whoever is in power in an effort to make sure that they don't actually get clapped, including but not limited to having new regulators take control over, certain aspects of the content moderation in an effort to combat anti-Semitism, which I think we all know what that means. That means anti-Israel statements, anti-Israel sentiments.